KTN Weekend Prime.
African heads tell Uhuru to ignore his ICC trial. No power vacuum. Ruto holds brief for the president. Battle for Bungoma. Political intrigues ahead of the by-election. And will it work? Mixed reactions over new Nyumba Kumi concept.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
We're so glad you joined us this weekend. It is the 12th of October, 2013. Welcome to KTN Weekend Prime. My name is Yvonne Okwara, and let's get into our big story tonight. And it's all that's happening in Addis Ababa. The African Union has resolved that President Uhuru Kenyatta should not attend his trial at the International Criminal Court. The AU accused the ICC of double standards, saying only African leaders are held accountable by the court. KTN's associate editor No Otieno now reports on the AU Special Summit from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The strongest decision ever taken by the African Union on the matter of the ICC, specifically on the cases facing President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto at The Hague in the Netherlands.
We have agreed that no charge shall be commenced or continued before any international court or tribunal against any serving heads of state or government or anybody acting or entitled to act in such capacity during his or her term of office. To safeguard the constitutional order, stability and integrity of member states, we have resolved that no serving AU head of state or government or anybody acting or entitled to act in such capacity shall be required to appear before any international court or tribunal during his term of office.
If that is not met, what the summit decided is that President Kenyatta should not appear until the requests we have made is actually answered.
A review meeting of the Rome Statute is coming up in a month's time at the meeting of the Assembly of States Parties to the Rome Statute. And the African Union is asking the 34 African countries who are members of the Rome Statute to push for an amendment of that statute to take care of Africa's concerns. Immediately, the African Union is also dispatching a committee of 5, Kenya included, to petition the United Nations Security Council on the issues agreed upon here today.
Furthermore, we have decided to set up a contact group of the Executive Council to be led by its chairperson, composed of 5 members from each region plus Kenya, to undertake consultations with the members of the United Nations Security Council. In particular, it is 5 permanent members with a view to engaging with them on all concerns of the African Union in its relationship with the ICC, including the deferral of the Kenyan and the Sudan case in order to obtain their feedback before the beginning of the trial on 12 November 2013.
According to the observers I've spoken to here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, this is an ultimatum. This is a deadline to the United Nations Security Council. And what it could do is to create a standoff between the African Union and the United Nations Security Council.
If our request for deferral does not get a response until then, we have agreed to request for postponement of the trial.
The United Nations Security Council has ignored the African Union before, at least on 2 occasions. And what the African Union has not done today is to tell Uhuru Kenyatta what to do if indeed he goes ahead to ignore the ICC and skip his trials and then have the ICC issue arrest warrants against him. Now, KTN at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Thank you for that, Noah. Now, it has been a day of interesting insights that we're getting from the African Union resolution. And the president did make a speech on that. It was in a closed session, but we have gotten parts of that speech that we would like to share with you now. Just taking a look at some of the highlights. But before we get into that, let's remind you of our big question tonight. And it's really not a yes or no. We want to know your thoughts on that AU resolution regarding the ICC. So what are your thoughts regarding the AU resolution to snub the ICC? What are your thoughts regarding the AU resolution to snub the ICC? Remember, this is not a yes or no question. We're simply asking you what your thoughts are. Please do share them with us on Twitter at KTN Kenya. You can tweet me at Yvonne Okwara. You can also send us a text on the number 22155. And also, please leave us your name and your location. Like we had said before, the president made a speech. Let's take a look at some of those highlights of that speech for you now. He had taken a swipe at the Western world, saying the arrogant world police is crippled by shambolic domestic dysfunction. These are the spectacles of Western decline we are witnessing today. And as for the real intentions of the ICC, he said the Western powers are the key drivers of the ICC process, and they have used prosecutions as ruses and bait to pressure Kenyan leadership into adopting or renouncing various positions. Of course, regarding funding, he said close to 70% of the court's annual budget is funded by the European Union. Now, as regards the election and how this matter changed from one that's personal to a national issue, he said, my government's decisive election must be seen as a categorical rebuke by the people of Kenya of those who wished to interfere with our internal affairs and infringe on our sovereignty. Now, he went on to criticize the work of the prosecutor, saying, that the proceedings continue revealing the evidence against us to be reckless figments and fabrications every passing day. He continues to say, I cannot narrate quite accurately the calculated humiliation and stigma the prosecution has inflicted on us at every turn within and outside the proceedings. It is all consistent with a political agenda rather than a quest for justice. Now, in the week, a statement by Bensouda on just what to do to make sure that when the deputy president is outside the country, that there is no vacuum. She made a statement saying, saying that one should be appointed to sit in for the deputy president while at The Hague. The president said the office of the prosecutor made certain categorical pronouncements regarding eligibility for leadership of candidates in Kenya's last general election. Only a fortnight ago, the prosecutor proposed undemocratic and unconstitutional adjustments to the Kenyan presidency. And finally, he said, the gratuitous libel and prejudice I have encountered at the instance of the prosecution seeks to present me as a fugitive from justice who is guilty as charged. And he said they want to see the ICC as fair and even-handed throughout the world. And we have Advocate Charles Kanjama, who's with us this evening, to just help us understand these events that have been happening. Thank you for your time this evening.
My pleasure.
Break it down for us, what this resolution means by the AU and exactly what it is they're asking the president to do or not do.
I think the resolution by the AU is ultimately a show of political support for the president of Kenya. They're basically saying that we will back you, whatever choice you take, whether you go to the ICC or not, you have our backing. I think it is a show of might that is telling the international community that Kenya has a legitimate president and deputy president who are legitimately elected by the people of Kenya. And if the ICC process interferes with their discharge of their constitutional duties, then we will back them if they make the choice not to cooperate with the ICC.
And in effect, they've said they're sending a delegation to the ICC. Explain that to us, asking for the cases to be brought back. What are the consequences of this if we get to a point where come November 12th, the president does not show up at The Hague?
Okay, there are a number of issues that are already taking place that must be resolved before November 12th. One is the application by President Kenyatta's legal team to have the trial indefinitely stalled or stopped on the ground of abuse of court process. He's filed a very solid application at the ICC. Second is this political effort, either through the UN Security Council or through the ICC, to get either the case deferred for a year or referred back to Kenya or withdrawn, because the ICC prosecutor has the right to withdraw the case at any moment. If all these efforts fail, November 12th comes and the president is not at the ICC, then the judges would have no other option save to issue a warrant of arrest if requested by the ICC prosecutor. Once a warrant of arrest is issued, it will be submitted to all the member states of the ICC and they would be told, please assist us to execute this warrant of arrest if this individual happens to be in your state or territory at any point in time hereafter.
Many Kenyans wonder whether there will be sanctions against the country. That's, what people are whispering, and that is the fear. Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility, naturally. The question of whether it is a probability, whether it is likely to happen, is a more interesting question. And I think it is a political issue. It is an issue that has to be resolved either by the UN Security Council. They could decide to issue sanctions under the UN Charter. It is possible that some member states unilaterally, like the European Union has done so in the past, issue sanctions against a country that's not cooperating. But my feeling is that no one would want to rush and do a unilateral threat of sanctions unless there is a widespread consensus of the international community. And my reading of the situation of Kenya is that China and Russia at least will not back any sanctions against Kenya.
What does this mean for Deputy President William Ruto, whose trial is ongoing and who is in the country right now holding brief for the president while he's in Addis?
I think for Deputy President William Ruto, the trial continues as had been initially planned. There should be no break in the trial. The only question would be if Uhuru Kenyatta declines to go to the ICC, what would that mean in respect to the assessment of the future cooperation of William Samoei Ruto? Because the ICC currently has issued summons against Ruto. He is not imprisoned at The Hague.
Would he be imprisoned?
If Uhuru
President
Kenyatta,
Uhuru doesn't go?
If Uhuru doesn't go, then of course the legal team of William Ruto would have to really sit down and ask themselves, this decision, would it affect our continued status of being under free summons with the court? Because if it will not affect, and that is a legal determination of the legal team, then he would continue with his trial. If, however, he concludes that it would affect his own trial, then he may be advised also to default, which would mean that both of them default from the case.
One last question regarding whether the president is immune from prosecution or not. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Desalegn said they had considered national and international law regarding this. Now, we know that's what it says in the Constitution, but there is in Chapter 9, 143(4) that says that that immunity shall not extend to a crime for which the president may be prosecuted under any treaty to which Kenya is party and for which this immunity is prohibited. What does this then mean? Is the president above the law in this particular case or not?
No, I think the legal position, which is clear when you get rid of all the emotions, all the politics, is that any signatory state to the Rome Statute recognizes the possibility of their head of state or head of government or any individual in their country being subject to the process of the ICC. The legal fact is also that under Article 143 of our Kenyan Constitution, we have recognized, whether we did it rightly or wrongly, whether we should have put that provision in the Constitution, that's a different question. But the current situation is that our Constitution recognizes the possibility of a head of state being tried for international crimes concurrently with his continuing to discharge his functions as head of state. So that legal argument that it cannot
that
prosecute,
he would be above the law,
cannot prosecute a sitting head of state, flies in the face of our Constitution and of the Rome Statute. But the political argument, that is a different issue.
Okay, all right. We have to leave it at that for now, but thank you so much for helping us understand what's happening. I'm sure we'll be talking in the coming days as we wait to see how this one plays out. Thank you very much. Speaking to Charles Kanjama, who's an advocate, and just talking about what is happening with the AU and the ICC. And let's stay on that matter for a moment, because Deputy President William Ruto was in the country, and he has allayed any fears of a power vacuum in the Kenyatta administration. Ruto returned home just hours before President Uhuru Kenyatta left for Ethiopia. He later addressed a rally in Kitale town. Here's Sam Ogina with the details.
Landing early Saturday morning to hold brief for the president as he attends the extraordinary Africa Union Summit in Ethiopia, Deputy President William Ruto did not waste time. Immediately attending to duty in Trans Nzoia County, where he went to close the Teldet IDP camp. Assuming the country's leadership, Ruto dispelled fears of a power vacuum in the Kenyatta administration. The deputy president says ICC cases against him and the president will not deter them from their official functions.
Sisi tunawahakikishia mambo ya Kenya hii, jukumu mulitupatia tuendeshe mambo ya taifa lenu la Kenya. Sisi tuko tayari, hatutasita, tuko imara na tutahakikisha kwamba mambo ya Kenya hii inaenda mbele. Mambo ya kotini iweko ama isiweko, sisi tuko tayari na tunajua jukumu letu ni gani.
President Uhuru, second in command, blasted external forces, saying Kenyans are capable of handling their affairs internally.
Wakenya walienda kwenye uchaguzi na wakaamua viongozi ni kina nani, na hiyo uamuzi ni ya wananchi wa Kenya, na inasemekana sauti ya wananchi ni sauti ya Mungu.
Suluhisha yale mambo yanatukabidhi, kama ni maneno ya ardhi, kama ni maneno ya kotini, tunaweza.
Backing the resolution by Africa leaders in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Ruto argued that the results of the last polls reflected the wishes of Kenyans and the country's sovereignty should not be tampered with.
Sisi ndio tutakaotatua matatizo ya Kenya hii. We are the ones. Hakuna wageni watatoka huko, hakuna watu ambao malaika watatoka mahali pengine. Ni Mungu yule tunaomba mbinguni, na sisi wananchi wa Kenya hii ndio tutaendesha mambo ya taifa letu la Kenya.
Yule msichana Mkambia naitwa Fatu Besuda ajue wazee wa Afrika wamezungumza na wachane kusumbua vijana wangu.
Ruto was addressing a meeting at Teldet Primary School in Trans Nzoia County, where he distributed checks worth 154 million shillings to 383 internally displaced persons, essentially closing down the camp. Samogina, KTN.
Let's go to some by-election politics now, and a section of Luhya leaders have thrown their weight behind Moses Wetangula in the contest for the Bungoma County Senate seat. Wetangula was stripped of the position following a successful petition by Musikari Kombo. Patrick Amimo reports.
The venue, Bungoma County. Occasion, a fundraiser to purchase land for Chimululuchi Primary School. Luhya leaders gathered here used the occasion to purchase a political lifeline for immediate former Bungoma County Senator and one of CORD principals, Moses Wetangula, when they rallied support for him to contest the Bungoma Senate by-election scheduled for December. There is concern from CORD supporters that Wetangula could be barred from the contest after a Bungoma High Court judge ruled that he committed an election offense in a case filed by his rival, Musikari Kombo.
Mkiona Wetangula anapigwa, mjue tuna jambo. Iko kitu ambaye anaelewa na wameogopa.
Ile mtu anasema IEBC inaweza kuzuia Moses Wetangula kusimama kama senator, amepotea, hata elewi sheria yake.
Vile ndugu yangu Marenda amesema, sheria iko, na wapende wasipende, Wetangula atakuwa kwa ballot paper on 19th of December.
After assuring Wetangula of their full support in the upcoming Bungoma County senatorial mini-poll, the leaders also delved into the subject of Luhya unity.
Kutoka leo tutatembea pamoja.
past efforts to have Luhya leaders speak with one political voice has proved to be rather slippery, but it would appear they are now ready to adopt a new strategy.
Wengine tunafungwa na ile utabiri inasemekana ati uongozi wa Mluhya utatoka kwa bahari, ziwa Victoria. Mimi nasema huo utabiri tayari umepita.
Should Luhya leaders implement Marende's statement, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga may find himself between a rock and a hard place as he seeks to win support for his presidential ambition in counties of Western Kenya, which have always supported his dream. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Let's move away from politics into matters of the economy. And Kenya's beach tourism has struggled for a long time. The industry first suffered in 1997 during the Likoni clashes. The 1998 bomb blast did not help matters, and the 2007 post-election violence dealt the industry yet another blow. Our Coast reporter Ferdinand Omondi now reports on the latest strategy by the players to keep the industry afloat.
The subtle signage of Kaskazi Hotel does little to betray what lies inside. But once you pass through the rather timid gate, Kaskazi opens up to a magnificent white monstrosity overlooking the immaculate white sandy beaches of Kenya's south coast. It has been in existence for over 20 years. But do not be surprised if you know little or nothing about it. Until 2 years ago, Kaskazi's doors were open to only one foreign country.
The history of the hotel, it was only run by the chairman management, and it was purely only chairmen who were residing here.
Yet this wasn't how the hotel owner meant it to be. He only made the wrong decision and handed over the management to the wrong persons.
At one point, they wanted even to make it exclusive club to some nationalities which we didn't like.
The difference in ideas led to a protracted court battle which eventually ended in favor of the owner in 2011. Since then, it has been a battle to put the hotel back into the path of profitability. However, this comes at a time when the European market is shrinking, and expanding that market alone would not have brought the expected dollars. The long-term and viable option was focused on domestic tourism, with Europe as a bonus. Hotels like Kaskazi are finally realizing that domestic tourism is indispensable for an impressive bottom line. However, they're coming in at a time when many other hotels had realized that long before, and the challenge now is coming up with the strategies that will ensure they too have their fair share. The first strategy was to look at the amenities that would provide an edge over their competitors. One particular service has of late proven a magnet for money if you get it right: conference tourism.
We are only targeting the market for non-government organizations, government parastatals, government ministries.
At the moment, the Leisure Lodge Hotel has been the undisputed king of conference tourism in South Coast, landing lucrative contracts both from the private sector and the government thanks to a 600-capacity conference center. But man does not live on bread alone, and the diversification in South Coast has faced a common problem. The South Coast has arguably some of the best beaches in the country, but that has not necessarily translated to more bookings. Indeed, a number of factors have conspired to lead to the relatively low bookings. Key among them is accessibility. Many tourists will attest to the fact that the biggest mental hurdle to booking a hotel in the South Coast is the ferry. Years of poor service and long queuing hours have conspired to drive people north. Perhaps the biggest challenge for the Kwale County government would be to market the South Coast as a brand. It is not uncommon for many guests who stay in Kwale hotels to think they are still in Mombasa.
You know, every time people go to Leisure Lodge, they think they're in Mombasa County. One thing that is very critical is marketing, is to first of all look at our uniqueness and be able now to profile our potential in tourism uniquely.
Ukunda and Diani in South Coast has all social amenities a guest would want, from supermarkets to bank and even an airstrip. Couple that with a game reserve, which is a modest distance from the white sandy beaches, and plenty of rooms in the long winding chain of beach hotels. South Coast has all the ingredients to package itself as an ideal destination for tourists all year round. The challenge now is for the stakeholders to get their act together. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, South Coast.
Thanks for that analytical piece, Ferdinand Omondi. The Nyumba Kumi initiative recently introduced by the government is a simple concept that requires one to know his or her neighbors. Now, according to the government, this will boost security in the country. It has worked in Tanzania, but will it work here? Angel Katusia seeks to answer that question.
Anachotanga maji, wakati maji hakuna, wakati nakuja ndo tunapatananga na yeye hapo chini. Akichota maji, huyo mwanamume hatujai muona.
Residents of these apartments in Githurai were shocked when police raided and shot dead 2 terror suspects, a couple who had lived next to them for a long time. The neighbors knew very little of the deceased, not their names, who they were, and what they did for a living. Police said the couple were on their wanted terror suspects list.
Hata neighbor wao hawaonangi. Isipokuwa msichana nilikuwa kulisemekana ni kama walikuwa na wasiwasi, kalikuwa kameonekana hiyo siku tu.
This could be a clear example on why the government wants to introduce a new concept in the country known as the Nyumba Kumi initiative. It is borrowed from Tanzania and basically encourages neighbors to know one another. Frida has been living in this estate in South Bay for the last 1 year. In this lane, there are 14 houses, and Frida only knows one neighbor. She doesn't even know the exact number of occupants in that neighbor's house.
I don't know my 10 neighbors, but I know at least one. Now the rest I don't know. The other one came in the other day, just 1 month old, but the rest I have no idea.
Frida Kalola, a mother of one, thinks it will be a good thing to embrace the Nyumba Kumi initiative. Although she put to doubt the security advantage of the initiative, she says embracing the idea may be beneficial.
It's not very easy, but it's not impossible. So let's say not 10, but you can start with knowing 1, 2, 3. So with time, if you're at a place for 3-4 years, you can know 10 people. Because they are in less than 10 meters from where you live. You see them every morning, you start by good morning. It can be a bad thing. That's the next person who will know the day you're sick. That's the person who can take your baby to hospital when you're not there and they're sick. Your house is on fire, they know which phone call to make because they know where you work, they know you. So I don't see anything wrong with you knowing the next person. Probably the person who doesn't want to be known, it's probably the bad person because what is it they're hiding?
The initiative is already on the implementation stage, with the president having already directed county governments to push the agenda. While Frida thinks there will be some teething problems in the initial stages, Carol Mwende, another South Bay resident, thinks otherwise.
Sioni kama unaweza jua majirani wako wote, hata watano si rahisi kuwajua, hata 10. Watano si rahisi kuwajua.
Carol fears that criminals may take advantage of the initiative.
Si mtu yote atakutrust uende ukabishe mlango yake na akufungulie na ujui ni nani, kwa sababu in most places like me nime witness so many crimes ya unasikia soja amekuja amechukuliwa na mtu unajua anaenda anafungua mlango, na because umejua ni sauti ya nani, you just open and then robbers would they just enter your house.
The success story of Nyumba Kumi in Tanzania may be attributed to the Ujamaa concept in the former communist republic. Its success rate in Kenya remains to be seen. Angel Katusia, KTN.
Indeed, how well do you know your neighbor or your neighbors for that matter? Thank you very much, Angel Katusia, for that one. Let's remind you of our big question tonight. It's not a yes or no. We're simply seeking your thoughts and your opinions on that AU resolution by the AU to snub the ICC. What do you think about that? Joe Kipngeno, you say, I support the AU stand. The ICC can delay the case until and after the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. It is time Africa held its ground. Keep your comments coming in on Twitter and on SMS. The number is 22155. We want to take a short break right now on KTN Weekend Prime, but KTN Job Center is coming up, and today we're focusing on someone who focuses on the president. Stay with us. Can't go, won't go. A dead man refuses to board a hearse.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
And this week, we meet Francis Luhavi, a 35-year-old man with a diploma in cooperative management. Francis has been job hunting for the last 7 years.
An industrial area waiting by the gates for a manual job opportunity, you'll find him deep in the slums of Kiambu making his way to this barber shop. For the last 7 years, Francis Lugalia has been moving from one odd job to another, trying to make ends meet. Like any other employee, his day begins at around 8 a.m. With a smile on his face, he gets down to business. He says what he makes at the end of the day is barely enough to put a decent meal on his family's table. Francis Lugalia graduated with a diploma in cooperative management after spending 3 years at the Karen campus. His dream was to work for a cooperative society.
Naweza furahia kama ninaweza kupata kazi kama ya credit officer. Credit officer ni yule anapatiana loans and then ana make follow-ups. Watu unawapatia loans kulingana na savings zile mtu amepatiana.
I asked Francis about diapers for his infant, and to him that is a luxury he cannot afford.
Okay, kuna vitu zingine inabidi nijinyime. Ile ya kawaida tu bora nimekula, wao wamekula, hizo zingine nasahau kwanza. Kama diapers vile unasema. Kama inabidi tuzoee. Hata wao niliwaelezea inabidi wazoee pia. Nikipata sawa, nisipopata pia wanajua sijapata.
But it was not always like this. Francis once had a good job.
At times huwa nafosiwa niende kama Australia na wale mahali watu wanangojea vibarua. Hapo sasa ukichukulia ni bahati yako, ukichukuliwa unaingia alafu unafanya per day, ndio inanisaidia pia kuendelesha hii maisha.
Job Center took Francis to a human resource practitioner, and here he met Christine Munene. His CV had a lot of errors, and Christine pointed out the do's and don'ts when writing a resume.
For your academic qualification, this bit here,
Yeah.
I highly suggest you just delete it. It's not really necessary.
Academic qualification.
Yeah, because your academic qualifications are already summarized here.
All right.
Okay, and as we agreed, the main courses taken are not necessary. Same thing with pertinent information about your availability. That also is not necessary, yeah, at all. Then for everything that you do, you need to list down your achievements. I'm sure all these years there's something you have done out of the ordinary that could boost you as a candidate. I've noticed there are gaps in your CV. 2007 to 2008, that's the last time you worked. Before 2007, there's also a 2-year gap. So anything that you did in this period actually capture what you have been doing in your CV.
My name is Francis Lishevi Lugalia. I'm 34 years old. I have a diploma in cooperative management, and I'm looking for a job in cooperative movement sector. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you.
Welcome, and wish you all the best.
Well, remember Wycliffe Siko, the journalism and mass communication graduate who boldly asked Standard Group Human Resource Director Pauline Kiraithe for internship? Well, he got it, his first ever internship. And William Sila, who had a degree in linguistics and media and communication, he actually got several offers after we aired his story, and he was spoiled for choice. However, he settled on the Kenya Copyright Board. If you want to feature in our Job Center segment, send us your details to KTN Job Center at standardmedia.co.ke. Our Facebook page is KTN Job Center, and our Twitter handle is at KTN Job Center. And who knows, we could be calling you next. Najma Ismail, KTN Job Center.
Indeed, and we welcome Siko to the team right here at the Standard Group, and we will be posting the details as to how you can get in touch with us once again. Thank you, Najma, for that. Let's stay on matters of Job Center, and let's go to a big break now. As a child, he would play inside a dark room. He was first introduced to photography by his elder sister, and then one day, opportunity knocked his door as Emmanuel Jambo took his first pictures ever. It was at a friend's wedding. Today, he is the official State House photographer. Here's his story.
I seen photography firsthand. I played inside a dark room. I've seen black and white prints. And then after that, after college, I started doing it for fun. And one day I decided to take it a bit more serious. 8 years ago, a brother of my friend wanted me to shoot his wedding. That was back in Atlanta, and I was very scared because I was just starting for like a couple of months, and I shot the wedding, and I did a good job, and they were very happy, and I was paid some good money, and I started doing it seriously, and a lot of people start calling me from Atlanta area. And after that, we started doing some work with Atlanta Fashion Week. It gave me a chance to meet a couple of artists, a couple of models, a couple of guys who were running local magazines in Atlanta. So we ended up doing some shoots for the magazines, for calendars, and models' portfolios. So it gave me a lot of confidence. I came to visit my sister in Nairobi here about 6 years ago, and I met up with Connie Alwach, the fashion editor for True Love, and through her we met up with Ayuga Pala, who convinced me to move to Nairobi. And we started doing work with Adam Magazine and Drum and True Love. So that was one of my biggest break here in Nairobi. After I started working with East African Magazine, which is Drum, Adam, True Love, and Twende, I started working with a couple of agencies in Kenya here, and we started doing advertisement and other work. Second big break in Kenya here was working with the president and the vice president. We started first with the campaign photography, the billboard and Facebook images, and then again we were called for the official photo, which was, of course, is going to be seen all over the country and some other countries. 2 years ago, I started M Studios, which deal with, of course, photography, magazine, editorial, advertisement, and we do cinematography too. We do music videos, we do documentaries, we do board of directors shoots, we do annual reports, we do billboards, do website photography, website. Working with the president is a great feeling, and it's very good, and it's very good for my profile. But at the same time, you know, he's an easy person to work with. So he make you feel comfortable. You don't feel intimidated. So, and that's where you get the best portrait, the best pictures. About a year and a half ago, I spent a lot of time in Zambia. Same thing. We did the photography for the campaign and his family portrait. So it gave me a lot of confidence, and it made it easier for me, you know, working with head of states.
And every week, as we do, we like to celebrate you, the employer, making a difference in society. Our Employer of the Week Today is 33-year-old Shahid Ali Khan, who owns 2 bakeries located at Nairobi's Westlands area. We're talking about Cake City. Shahid is also known by his initials SAK. He opened his business in November 2012 and started with only 7 members of staff. Today, Cake City has 30 employees in both branches. SAK says he plans to open another branch at Thika Road Mall by the end of this year. And as you can see, we are making a difference in the lives of Kenyans looking for work. That email address again is ktnjobcenter@standardmedia.co.ke. On Twitter, our handle is @KTNJobCenter, same on Facebook as well. So please do get in touch with us and we will put you in touch with the people that will make a difference in your life. We want to take a short break now on KTN Weekend Prime. We have lots more coming up for you. Take a look. Her condition. She was born with clubfoot. And tonight, Sharon Mamanyi tells us her story on Survivor Series.
It is a particularly bumpy and dusty road at an estate in Ruiru town, a road that eventually leads us to 23-year-old Jennifer Karanja's pleasantly warm house. The rough journey as if telling of a life story. Jennifer was born with clubfoot.
When I was a child, before I came to understand exactly what was going on, it was very challenging, because sometimes maybe when you've gone somewhere or visited somewhere and you have to remove your shoes, I always found that as a challenge, because once you remove the shoes, you see now children start pointing at you, laughing. They're like, wow, what a big foot, It has been very, very challenging. And as a child, I used to ask myself, why me?
But what exactly is clubfoot?
Usually the feet, instead of being straight and stepping on you can call it the sole of the foot, they sometimes step on the side of the foot so that they step like that, or sometimes on the top of the foot so that they step like that. So the foot is actually twisted, is pointed down, so that the heel cannot touch the ground, and also is pointed inward, and then it's also twisted so that one tends to walk on the outer side of the foot or on the top side of the foot.
The doctor explains that the recommended method of treating clubfoot is through the Ponseti method, a manipulative treatment method where displaced bones are gradually brought into the correct alignment by use of a plaster cast. But Jennifer's parents did not find out about this until it was a little too late. At only 8 months of age, she had a corrective surgery. Unfortunately, instead of helping her, it worsened her condition.
Some parts that were not supposed to be cut were cut, so I think that made the case more complex.
If you are going to go the surgery way, then you need someone who is experienced to do that type of operation. A clubfoot operation is not an easy operation, and quite a lot of people try to do it, but then they are unable to fully correct it. Or sometimes even the foot itself is too difficult to correct, even with surgery occasionally. For the foot, of course, there are very many structures that you can injure, like the nerves, like the vessels. Then the second thing is incomplete correction. But as long as you have done an operation on any place, like a part of the body, there is scarring that takes effect. There is some scarring within the place where you have operated. That causes, for example, if it's the foot, to be very stiff, so that it is harder to correct.
From that first botched operation, Jennifer was forced to undergo surgery 5 more times.
The 5th operation was done at SQ Kijabe. That was 99, and with time I started noticing some difference, because before I used to wear shoes after every 2 weeks. I used to change shoes after every 2 weeks, but after having undergone this surgery, I noticed that at least now the foot was improving with time. But, you know, I was also becoming a teenager, and sometimes to wear special shoes. When you're in high school, you know, people looking at you, they're wondering what's wrong, why is one leg shorter than the other, why are you wearing special shoes? So I just ignored, and club foot can recur if not well followed. Yeah, so it recurred again after having undergone the 5th operation.
With the persistent condition, Jennifer's family was running low on hospital funds. At the young age of 17 years, she resorted to utilizing her singing talent to raise the funds.
These operations have been costly and have completely crippled my parents financially.
And in 2009, Jennifer underwent her 6th and finally successful surgery at the AIC Cure International Children's Hospital in Kijabe, a specialty hospital that provides surgical treatment to children with physical disabilities.
Before I used to limp a lot. You know, when I was walking, you could notice I was limping a lot. So there's a complete transformation, and I can say it's almost like I've overcome.
Though almost completely healed, her foot has remained slightly disfigured, limiting the types of shoes that she can wear.
Right now, I can wear shoes, but I can only wear boots. I found a strategy that I compose myself. You know, I always wear something that is compatible with the shoes that I wear. And I decided to use my weakness as my stronghold. So I decided to, you know, start a campaign and create awareness and also inspire the other people, you know, born with club foot, and tell them that it's okay. There's this lady from Zimbabwe. She was very troubled. Her child had bilateral club foot, that is club foot on both legs. You know, it can happen. It's a common case. So she was very, very, very worried about her baby because she had looked for hospitals everywhere. So at last she decided to send messages or contact people who have campaigns on club foot. And so I happened to see her message, and through online communication, I contacted the doctor from Zimbabwe, and she got free surgery for her son. Now everything is okay.
Transformed both physically and in spirit, Jennifer, a gospel artist, is now dancing to an entirely different tune, a tune of victory.
The Impala Floodlight Tournament defending champions Nondis will take on Impala next weekend after they bundled out Mwamba by 31-5 points in the quarterfinals at the Impala grounds today. Impala had earlier on thrashed Homeboys 41-19. Victor Gale reports from Gong Road.
Attention. Impala Floodlight defending champions Non-Script have booked a semi-final slot where they will play Impala next weekend. Nondi's 3 times winners were unchallenged in the quarter-final match against Mwamba as they routed them 31-5. From kick-off, Nondis were on point, managing to hold Mwamba's attack line and took an 11-0 lead at halftime. The title holders took charge after the break but conceded a try. Earlier on, Impala beat youthful Homeboys 41-19, bundling them out of the tournament.
It's good, especially Impala displayed a very good game today. My boys' set pieces below average in terms of scrum down and line out. So to me, it has been a long off-season for the 15er side guys.
First game of the season, despite the defensive lapses, at least we ended up scoring 2 more tries at the end, but it's a good start.
Most of the teams as witnessed are using the Floodies to gauge their scores ahead of the 2013-2014 Kenya Cup season. Main Machine beat Nakuru 24-15. The semi-finals of the 32-year-old tournament will be played next week. Standard Group 3 Game Yetu is the media sponsor. The Impala Floodies rugby tournament has been used over the years by teams to gauge their squads before the beginning of the Kenya Cup. And this time round, things are not different as teams had the chance to also field new and young players. Victor Ogale, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, let's get to the athletics world, and it was some great stuff that was happening. Upstarts dominated the cross-country season curtain raiser, the Ndalata event in Nandi today. Berlin Marathon champion Florence Kiplagat and Moscow World Championship Marathon team member Peter Kimeli were the biggest casualties as their bids to win senior races fell flat on their faces. Little-known Corette Chepkoech denied Kiplagat, also a former world cross-country champion, the victory in the senior women 8 kilometers race after taking the crown in 27 minutes, 44.4 seconds. Kiplagat, who won in Berlin 2 weeks ago, finished second in 28 minutes, 10.4 seconds. Hilary Kimboy topped the senior men's race and chested the tape in 36 minutes, 54.4 seconds. Now let's take you to the story that we had promised you at the beginning of this bulletin. Residents of Mathare North were treated to a rare spectacle when relatives of a dead man failed to transport his remains to Homa Bay County. The relatives claimed their journey home had been disrupted 3 times in unclear circumstances.
Relatives of the late Peter Otieno were forced to keep vigil with the body of the deceased by the roadside in Mathare North Estate. Their journey last night to Homa Bay County hit a snag after a house they had hired developed mechanical problems less than 2 kilometers into the journey. According to residents, that was the 3rd vehicle hired for the mission.
Maremo ilikuwa inafaa fike leo asubuhi na ni gari. Dereva amesema clutch imeungua. Sasa ilikuwa inabidi kifika leo asubuhi ipelekwe garage. Imepelekwa. Tunangoja hiyo gari. Kwa upendo ya Mungu tunajua tutafika.
Residents gathered here in the hundreds to witness the spectacle of a body that had allegedly declined to be transported to the countryside.
Sasa ikiwa bibi ametangulia huko nyumbani, iwezi kuwa mambo ya gari. Ni hivyo, sasa bibi akirudi, waandamana naye pamoja ataenda.
Kuna maneno ya mwili makata. Mwili nakataa ya nini? Tunajua Mungu anaweza, na anaweza yote.
Some residents gathered here said they have witnessed similar scenarios where spirits of the dead allegedly refused to be transported. They offered suggestions on what could be done to appease the dead.
Dada yake amwambie sisi hatuzikwangi Nairobi, tuko na kwetu, sisi tunaenda kuzika nyumbani. Ama ule bibi yake kama ametangulia nyumbani akuja Nairobi.
Achukuliwe kwa miguu ziangalie pande za kwenda Ushago. Sasa kichwa iangalie Nairobi alafu atafika tu, hakuna maneno hapo.
Residents who kept watch after journalists had vacated the scene said the family later talked to the deceased and appealed to his spirits to allow them to bury him at his rural home. Witnesses said the body was later turned in the coffin so that the head faced the position intended for the feet according to Luo customs. This, they say, ensures that the rest of the deceased's final journey is uninterrupted. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Right, we've come to the end of our bulletin tonight, and let's remind you of our big question. We had just asked you to give us your views on that AU resolution to snub the ICC. What were your thoughts? It wasn't a yes or no question. Let's get into it. Rhonda Linux, you say it's about time. Opt out of the ICC until the West opts fully in. That's on Twitter. Let me read one more text from William in Mombasa saying Uhuru said he will cooperate whether elected or not. What has changed? It abhors to think that in all this we have forgotten about the hundreds of victims. Do Kenyans have such short memories? A nun pulled us from the mud. It's disrespectful and shaming to even talk ill of him. Where was the AU then? Those are your views tonight. We thank you so much for watching, for participating, and for your feedback, which is always appreciated. Do remember, we will be doing this again next weekend, especially with KTN Job Center. So do remember to get in touch with us. I've given you the details on my Twitter handle. Let's see you again tomorrow. Checkpoint will be here tomorrow, and as you can imagine, the issue of the AU, the ICC, and the president, and whether or not he will attend, will be in full focus. You do not want to miss that. We will see you tomorrow. God bless you. Bye-bye.